Here's a brief look at the US made TS34 oscilloscope. In the end, the rubber surround, there's a carrying handle here, and there's two lots of controls, one up the side here and one up the other side. Not a lot on this side other than the power switch. You have just the input attenuation and impedance. It's interesting seeing they're using what I'd call UHF sockets for both sides. And at the end we have the brightness and focus for the tube. Power supply, 110 volts, comes in through the lead there. On this side we can see the sync inputs and the selection of internal and external, sync polarity. These are the time-based ones, these are positions. There's some, I'm not really sure what some of these inputs are for. They're possibly specialized inputs for something, but they disconnect certain parts of the tube controls here, and they're just underneath those covers. So this is the inside of the TS34. There is not a lot to say about it that you can't see straight away from here. The CRT is held within a metal tube. The light bulb here, this is just an ordinary light bulb, lights up through a gap here. There's a graticule in there which is illuminated, and there's a lens further down. The tube itself is just a 2-inch diameter tube which sits at the back here. Now when we obtained this, most of the valves were gone, so it's a case of replacing all the valves in their cases, but a decision was made not to pay a ridiculous price for 2 dual rectifiers we needed for the power supply. So in exchange for that we put in 2 silicon rectifiers, or I say a collection of silicon rectifiers, and the relay on a timer circuit turns on the HT after the valves have warmed up. Here's the other side, not a lot to see that's very much different. You can actually see the little gap here where the light shines through from the bulb. There's a lot of double triodes along here. Interesting to note there's been a lot of resistors added on the top, and I'm not sure whether some of these have been added subsequently. I know we added some bits and pieces when repairing it, like the capacitors, but I'm not so sure that these are all original resistors on here. This of course is the underside. We can see the mains transformer and many other parts. I have to say this is not one of the easiest things to work on, as you can tell. There's a lot of components all buried deep down inside, so it took a long time to fix it. But surprisingly enough, there's still a lot of original components in it, as you can see. The timer board, etc., for the switch on of the HT is down hidden in there. As you can see, it's quite a challenge reading some of the components that needed changing right in the bottom. And this tag strip obviously has had some new components put on it for another part of the circuit. Here you can see the narrow slit which you peer at the tube through, and just in the distance you can probably just make out the lens inside, because there's a lens and there's a graticule further down. Lastly, let's have a little look at its performance. We're currently looking from outside the tube, so if we look down through the eyepiece, and that's what it looks like. Remember, that's a 2-inch tube through a magnifying glass with a graticule. The graticule being illuminated by the light bulb on the side of the case which surrounds the tube. What we're looking at here is simply a 10 kHz sine wave. Nothing really special, coming from an audio oscillator, so in fact that means we can stick it on square wave, and that's what it looks like with a square wave. Top end response is quite good. If we put it back to the sine again, that is 100 kHz. So if we wind that round, that gives us a little bit, there you go, and that's changing the sync. So that's 100 kHz sine wave, and that's 100 kHz square wave. When we do our radar room demonstrations, we like to demonstrate things like oscilloscopes so that you can actually see them working. And what better thing to put through this US scope is a replica signal to that received by the Opana Point Radar set on the morning of the Pearl Harbour raid. There's pictures of this to be found online, and therefore it's quite easy to replicate that, including to make it moving so it's not just a straight line across the display with just the necessary points on it. And that's what we're looking at here. So it's a small box we have plugged into it, and this is hopefully something that gives a bit of an idea for anybody looking at it what it would have looked like looking at this screen on the morning of the raid. Hope this has been of some interest. You've learned a little bit about the TS34 oscilloscope, so thanks for watching.